All right, folks, gather round for today's episode of Conspiracy Theories that make about as much sense as a screen door on a submarine. Today, we're diving into one of the all-time classics. The idea that the U.S. government is sitting in Alaska with a giant weather remote control, casually steering hurricanes like they're playing SimCity with Mother Nature. I'm talking about HAARP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, which, according to some very creative folks on the internet, is basically Zeus's lightning bolt factory. They claim this facility can conjure up hurricanes, steer them wherever they want, and apparently has a personal vendetta against Florida trailer parks. So let's break this down, shall we? Because if the government could actually control hurricanes, I've got some questions. Like, why would they keep hitting their own country? That's like keying your own car because you're mad at your neighbor. What HAARP actually is. First, let's talk about what HAARP actually is, because spoiler alert, it's not a weather machine. HAARP is a scientific facility aimed at studying the properties and behavior of the ionosphere, which stretches roughly 50 to 400 miles above Earth's surface, right at the edge of space. Picture this. It's a phased array of 180 high-frequency crossed dipole antennas spread across 33 acres, capable of radiating 3.6 megawatts into the upper atmosphere and ionosphere. Now, 3.6 megawatts sounds impressive, right? That's like, well, it's about as powerful as a large radio station. Not exactly Death Star levels of power here, folks. And here's the kicker. The facility was transferred from the United States Air Force to the University of Alaska Fairbanks in August 2015. So if this is a secret weather weapon, they handed it over to college professors. Yeah, nothing says top secret global domination like giving your doomsday device to academics who probably spend half their time trying to figure out how to work the coffee machine. Let's get scientific for a minute. The ionosphere is way up there. We're talking 50 to 400 miles above your head. Weather? Weather happens down here in the troposphere, which is basically the first 7 miles or so above the ground. That's like trying to change the temperature in your basement by adjusting the thermostat on the roof of a skyscraper. HAARP emits radio waves that are partially absorbed between 100 kilometers and 350 kilometers above Earth. That's roughly 60 to 220 miles up. Meanwhile, hurricanes form and operate in the troposphere, which tops out at about 12 miles high. It's like trying to steer a car by shouting at satellites. The conspiracy theorists will tell you, Betty, but it's heating the ionosphere. And they're right. It does heat up tiny patches of the ionosphere. But here's the thing. HAARP can perturb a small portion of the ionosphere. We're talking about heating an area that's like a postage stamp compared to the entire atmosphere. It's like trying to heat your house by holding a lighter up to the ceiling. Let's talk numbers because math doesn't lie, unlike some YouTube videos. HAARP directs a 3.6 megawatt signal into the ionosphere. That's 3.6 megawatts. Sounds big, right? Well, Hurricane Katrina, one of the storms they claim HAARP created, released energy equivalent to about 600 trillion watts. That's 600 trillion watts. HAARP's 3.6 million watts is like bringing a water pistol to fight a tsunami. It's not even close. To put this in perspective, if Hurricane Katrina was a freight train, HAARP would be a paper airplane. If Katrina was Niagara Falls, HAARP would be a leaky faucet. If Katrina was the sun, HAARP would be a birthday candle that someone forgot to light. Now, I know what you're thinking. But what about the government cover-up? Well, here's the thing. According to NOAA, no technology exists that can create, destroy, modify, strengthen, or steer hurricanes in any way, shape, or form. And when Hurricane Milton and Helene hit, in 2024. A HAARP spokesperson told Reuters there was absolutely no connection to the formation of hurricanes like Helene or Milton, and that neither HAARP nor any facility can affect hurricanes. But wait, there's more! Scientists have pointed out that HAARP is completely harmless and not capable of causing hurricanes or reading minds or making caribou walk backward or any of the millions of things it's been accused of. Yes, someone actually accused HAARP of making caribou walk backward. At this point, I'm surprised nobody's blamed it for their Wi-Fi being slow. Let's think about this logically for a second. If the U.S. government could control hurricanes, why would they keep hitting the United States? That's like having a magic gun that only shoots yourself in the foot. Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans, an American city. Hurricane Milton and Helene also hit American communities. If this is a weapon, it's the worst aimed weapon in history. It's like having a boomerang that only comes back to hit you in the face. And here's another thought. If the government had weather control technology, don't you think they'd use it for good things? Like, I don't know, ending droughts, making it rain in California, giving us perfect beach weather every weekend? Instead, according to this theory, they're using it to destroy their own infrastructure and create massive insurance payouts they have to cover. That's some real 4D chess right there. Real hurricanes form when you have warm ocean water, at least 80 degrees Fahrenheit, low wind shear, and some atmospheric instability. It's like a recipe. You need all the ingredients in the right proportions. The ocean has to be warm enough, the winds have to be just right, and the atmosphere needs to cooperate. HAARP, meanwhile, is shooting radio waves into the ionosphere, which is like trying to bake a cake by pointing a flashlight at the ceiling. The mechanisms don't even overlap. It's like claiming you can change the color of your car by adjusting your TV's volume. Here's what's really happening. People see a big, impressive-looking facility with lots of antennas and think, aha, secret weapon. It's the same psychology that makes people think 5G towers cause COVID or that birds aren't real. Big, technical-looking thing plus bad event equals conspiracy theory. Plus, hurricanes are scary and unpredictable. It's psychologically comforting to think someone's in control, even if they're evil. The alternative, that nature is chaotic and sometimes terrible things just happen, is harder to accept than the government did it. Here's something conspiracy theorists never think about. Paperwork. If HAARP was a secret weather weapon, there would be budgets, personnel records, maintenance schedules, insurance claims, safety protocols, environmental impact studies, and probably a whole lot of OSHA violations. Scientists and other critics point out that these claims fall well outside the abilities of the facility and often outside the scope of current natural science. And remember, this facility is now run by the University of Alaska Fairbanks. If it was a secret weapon, handing it over to a public university would be like giving your nuclear launch codes to the guy who runs the campus bookstore. Here's another fun fact. If the U.S. had hurricane control technology, don't you think other countries would be just a little bit concerned? Like, maybe China or Russia would have something to say about America having a weather machine. There would be international treaties, UN resolutions, and probably a whole lot of diplomatic incidents. Instead, what we have is a research facility that's so secret that it has its own website, gives public tours, and publishes its research in peer-reviewed journals. That's the worst secret weapon cover-up in history. It's like trying to hide an elephant by putting a Post-it note over it. Let's look at the timeline. The High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program began in 1990. Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005. So according to this theory, it took them 15 years to figure out how to use their weather machine. That's either the slowest weapon development in history, or they had some serious training issues. And here's the kicker. Hurricanes existed long before HAARP, like for literally millions of years. The Galveston hurricane of 1900 killed thousands of people. Was that HAARP too? Did they invent time travel along with weather control? Because that would actually be pretty impressive. Let's talk about energy for a second. A single hurricane releases more energy than the entire United States uses in a year. If we could harness that kind of power, we'd solve the energy crisis overnight. Instead of using hurricanes as weapons, we'd be using them as the ultimate renewable energy source. But according to this theory, the government can somehow generate enough energy to create and control hurricanes, but they're still worried about oil prices and arguing about solar panels. It's like claiming you can bench press a car, but still struggling to open a pickle jar. Real meteorologists, people who actually study weather for a living, can barely predict where a hurricane will go 5 days in advance. The atmosphere is what scientists call a chaotic system, meaning tiny changes can have huge, unpredictable effects. It's like trying to predict exactly where a leaf will land after you drop it in a windstorm. But somehow, according to this theory, HAARP can not only predict these chaotic systems, but control them with precision. That's like claiming you can play billiards with a blindfold on while riding a unicycle during an earthquake. Here's my favorite part of this theory. The idea that the government is simultaneously competent enough to control hurricanes and incompetent enough to leave obvious evidence everywhere. They can manipulate the weather, but they can't hide the fact that they're doing it from random people on the internet. If the government could control hurricanes, don't you think they'd be a little more subtle about it? Instead of having a giant, obvious facility in Alaska, maybe they'd disguise it as a Starbucks or something. But no, according to this theory, they built a massive, visible research facility and then act surprised when people notice it. Multiple fact-checking organizations have verified that claims about HAARP creating hurricanes are false. The claim that the HAARP facility can control the Earth's weather is false, as the facility only interacts with particles in the Earth's ionosphere well above the weather systems. But here's what's really telling. There is no technology that humans have that can either create, destroy, modify, intensify hurricanes. None. Zero. Zilch. We can't even make it rain reliably, but somehow we're supposed to believe we can create Category 5 hurricanes? You want to know what the real conspiracy is? It's not that the government controls hurricanes. It's that climate change is making hurricanes more intense and more frequent, and some people would rather believe in weather machines than accept that we need to change how we live. The real conspiracy is that fossil fuel companies have spent decades downplaying climate change while hurricanes get stronger and more destructive. But that's not as exciting as a secret weather weapon, so it doesn't get as much attention on social media. So here's the bottom line. HAARP is not a weather machine. It's a research facility that studies the ionosphere by sending radio waves way up into the atmosphere. It has about as much control over hurricanes as a flashlight has over the sun. The conspiracy theory that HAARP controls hurricanes is like claiming you can control traffic by pointing a laser pointer at airplanes. The physics don't work, the energy scales don't work, the timeline doesn't work, and the logic doesn't work. But here's what does work. Good old-fashioned meteorology. Hurricanes form when warm ocean water meets atmospheric instability. They're powered by the sun and steered by global wind patterns. It's not a conspiracy. It's just physics. And honestly, the real weather is way more interesting than any conspiracy theory. The fact that we can predict hurricanes days in advance, that we understand the complex interactions between ocean temperature and atmospheric pressure, that we can track these massive storms from space. That's the real marvel here. So the next time someone tells you that HAARP controls hurricanes, ask them this. If the government could control the weather, why is it still raining on your barbecue? Because trust me, if they had that kind of power, they'd definitely use it to make sure the 4th of July is always sunny. That's all for today's debunking session. Remember, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and I saw it on YouTube doesn't count as evidence. Keep questioning, keep thinking, and keep your umbrellas handy, because the weather is still beyond our control, and that's probably a good thing.